Andrew Bogut is one of Australia's most decorated athletes. The former Milwaukee Bucks superstar spent most of his professional career with the Bucks before heading back to Australia in 2018 after his retirement from the NBA. Now, Andrew is a successful businessman in his own right and a podcaster with his own podcast show called Rogue Bogues. Now, just last week, the Victorian Electoral Commission attempted to silence Bogut with a cease and desist letter following his doubling down on and telling Victorians not to vote for certain politicians. Now, the attempt by the VEC to silence Bogut is bizarre in the extreme, given Andrew's not aligned or a member of any particular political party. And we need to ask, why can't Andrew tell Victorians not to vote for particular politicians? Welcome, Andrew. How crazy has the world gone?
Oh, I mean, I'd say I'm shocked, but I'm not with the way Victoria's run. You know, when I first received the letter, which was early December, I was kind of shocked when I first read it. And then I sat down and thought about it and I said to myself, you know, this fits in with everything that's been going on the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years in Victoria. And it's just puzzling. There's so much to unpack with the letter itself and what it says and the directions they've given. But yeah, for someone, I don't think I'm special first and foremost. I don't think I'm above the law, but for someone just an, you know, everyday retired athlete now, everyday person, I believe I am. I go about my business daily like most people. To receive that kind of letter is, you know, it's very, very concerning for, I guess, our democracy and what we stand for, what we have stood for in Australia and even Victoria, but that window is slowly closing.
Now, right from the offset, I just want to be clear, we reached out to Mr. Gately from the Commission to come on and give him the opportunity to reply. As yet, we haven't received a response. But given the Victorian Electoral Commission's role in policing what would be political advertising, how many of these complaints, where as he said he was acting on a complaint, how many of these complaints do you think, I think he cited over 200 for the 2020 year, how many of those do you think have gone to individuals such as yourself?
I couldn't tell you. I guess it'd be in single figures if it's more than one. I'll give you another tidbit. So that very post, I made it late October. I'm in a group chat with numerous influential people who are strongly against what's going on in the government in Victoria. Someone in that group made that, his graphic design team made that post. People in that group chat have from 5,000 people following them on socials to 30, 40, 50,000, right? We all posted the video in question and the post in question. We all posted at the same time. We kind of strategically mass posted it on all our channels and tried to drum up support and get that in front of Victorians' eyeballs. I'm still to this day the only one that received the letter. So, I mean, I'm very vocally against the Victorian government, even pre-coronavirus, pre-pandemic. I've been strongly against everything that they stand for and that they spit out of their mouths. And I mean, if you put 2 and 2 together, some people could correlate that maybe the Electoral Commission has been infiltrated by Labor officials. Who knows? That's alleged, right? So I want to be clear, that's alleged, but that's some people's theories on the matter. So to your initial question about getting someone on from the Electoral Commission, you might need to call down Andrews and ask if they can come on first.
Now, the penalties that you're open to are fairly staunch, maybe not of somebody of your stature and success rate, but for somebody such as myself, a $26,000 penalty being open to would be a chilling and frightening prospect for me and would definitely silence me. Is that where we're at in Victoria?
Yeah, that's for a corporation. So for an individual, which they claim I am, I don't know what they deem me as these days, but I think for me, for an individual, it's a couple of grand, and for a corporation, it's on the higher end. But well, let's be clear. Like I've said this numerous times, you can agree or disagree with my political views, and that's your right. I will fight for your right to do that. I will fight for your right to come at me and say, Andrew, I disagree with your thoughts on the pandemic. You respectfully, of course. As soon as it gets abusive, I switch off from you. I'll fight for your right to do that. Put that aside. If you disagree with my political views, the way I go about it, you're within your right. separate that from the letter. It should be very concerning, because what will happen? There's people out there that are saying, "Oh well, Bogut, you're not above the law. Follow the law." Well, number one, I didn't break the law. I'm not a political party. I'm not a politician. Number two, their very own letter circles out social media. And number three, there actually was a statement of declaration, which people forget to mention. At the end of that very video in question, there's a website, votethemout.com.au. You click that website, there's a statement of declaration. There's a PTY Ltd of the company who made the video. So they've got no leg to stand on. But my point being is that, one, if you're supporting this letter being sent out and you're supporting saying that you broke the law, shut up, take it on the chin, one day someone's going to be in power that you don't like. One day someone's going to be in office, or a politician or a councillor that you criticize on your social media as a sovereign citizen or individual, and say, oh, I hate the Greens, I hate the Liberal Party, I hate the Labor Party that's in power. They suck. Don't vote for them. You can then be sent a letter the same way I am. And that's what I'm trying to explain to people, even if you're not on my side with my thoughts and opinions. This can be turned around one day and come for you.
The divisive and divided nature of our community at the moment is something I've never seen. And if we go back just a few years ago when we went through the bushfires and the droughts, I'd never been prouder to be part of this community where we came together en masse to all support. And now this level of division that's happened is a direct result of the leadership, in my opinion, what they've done, at that moral complexity has been replaced with moral certainty. If you don't agree, if you don't support, if you don't follow a certain narrative, then you're a bad person. Is that what you were seeing with the feedback that you're getting? I know a lot of it on Twitter is fairly toxic.
Look, Twitter's one thing. My barometer is when I'm out physically in the community. That's my barometer. And the stuff that I get on social media, the abusive stuff's probably 30-40% is probably pretty bad. It's not even 1% when I'm out in public. It's very supportive, and I don't know if it's the fact that those people don't have the balls to come up to me, but I welcome it if they want to have that debate. But you're right. Like it's well noted, I'm from Croatian descent. A family migrated from Yugoslavia. You know, they were in a war in the 90s, and I saw that division firsthand: Croatian, Serbian, Bosnian, all that kind of stuff. And this is very similar, without the weaponry, without the bloodshed of seeing what's going on. You know, vaxxed, unvaxxed, double dose, single dose. You know, are you boosted, or why don't you have your mask on, walking around a field by yourself outside on 100 acres? Why are you doing this? You're not social. It is, and it's just been every day for 2 years. We're behind the 8 ball in Australia. Other countries have pushed back way sooner. But one thing I will say is I'm starting to see some pushback. I'm starting to see people that are influential, that have a voice, are starting to question the narrative, which is a step, albeit it's slow in Australia. We're still, like I said, we're 6 months behind other nations. People are starting to voice their opinion a little bit more now, and that's all we can ask for. But the tide is starting to turn, and our politicians, Labor, Liberal, Independents, ScoMo, Andrews, Palachuk, McGowan, they've all failed miserably, because your main job as a politician is to keep the community calm and bring people together and keep people human and build on that humanity. It's not to stoke the flames of, you know, this guy's this anti-masker, anti-vaxxer, oh, you're a detriment to the community. It's not about that. And your job as a politician isn't to pour more fuel on that fire. And every single one of them has failed miserably. I don't care what political party it is. You can't name me one in Australia that is cool, calm, collected, and collected without the fear mongering in the whole country. And that is an embarrassment. And the fact that people in those said states are treating their political party like a football team or a basketball team is absolutely embarrassing. And I can only hope those people, you know, wake up to themselves.
Now, do you feel that the VEC's basically become a proxy attack dog here for the Andrews government with this approach?
Well, there's people that say that. There's people that say that. I mean, they claim that they're not partisan and they shouldn't be. But we know that. Look, I give credit to Daniel Andrews because he has clocked politics. If you can clock a video game, he has clocked politics. He has people in every department of the public service in his pocket. I don't care what you tell me. Every the CFMEU, the fire department, the police, every department's in his pocket. We've seen it the last 2 years, firing rubber bullets at citizens of Victoria. And that's a concern, but give credit to Dan. He's politically, he's the pinnacle of a life of a politician. That is just his whole life has been based around being a politician, has no real world experience, arts degree, typical. I mean, he's done. I got to give him credit. He's done very, very well from that front. So it would not surprise me if the VEC, someone there got a call from someone in Labor government. That would not surprise me. But they will, strongly deny that. No, we're in the middle. We don't take sides. Well, everyone takes sides at the end of the day. At the end of the day, there's probably Liberal and Labor voters that work for the VEC. So human nature says you're going to be partisan to one side.
Now, I'm going to jump topics a little bit. On your Rogue Bogues podcast, you've been a fairly staunch critic of the government and a supporter of Ian Cook's and Sluggate. Have they ever reached out or threatened Ian Cook? Because he's been fairly direct and you could not be more forthright with his comments about the wrongs that he feels have been done. The government haven't tried to silence him or interact in any way.
No, and he's even mentioned on my podcast that he's been strategically defamatory with truth, basically saying, if you allege somebody's dropped a slug in your premises to frame you, that's a hell of a thing to say if it's not truthful. You're going to court and you could lose a lot of money and lose everything you own. He's noted, I have yet to receive a cease and desist letter for defamation. So that goes to tell you that they know, they're basically agreeing that what you're saying is truthful. We're just going to try to ignore it. And the Sluggate thing is a precursor to what we're seeing in the government, with the levels of corruption. And, Andrews, every other month that government has been brought in some sort of controversy. You had the red shirts, you've got Sluggate, you had Cedar Meats at the start of this pandemic who are major Labor donors who are operating unaffected compared to other businesses. 4,000 ICU beds, where do they go? The security company that was hired for cultural diversity reasons, they weren't hired to actually be good at what they do. Jobs for the boys. And just every 2 months something pops up, and people are just like, oh no, it's every government. Every government's got some corruption, so we'll just sweep it under the rug. And you're just like, mate, and that's why I'm big on this Sluggate. I mean, it's close to home for me. I'm from Dandenong, so losing that business aside is one thing, but they had technology ready to go that a lot of people don't know, that the Arab Emirates and the US and a few other countries were going to invest a boatload of money in. They had up to $25-30 million on the table for their IP. So for that to come from Dandenong would have been a proud moment for what is, a very working class suburb, low to medium socioeconomic suburb. To have that come from Dandenong would have been like, holy shit! Like I can make it from Dandenong. Look at what these people have done. And now that's been taken away just because of Victorian government corruption and hypocrisy. And I think that is a precursor, like I said, a small sample size of what we're dealing with now in the Victorian government.
Yeah, and to see Ian become emotional talking about the 21 staff, and especially one of the staff who had some disabilities, who hasn't worked since, and see that man tear up about it, and yet we have this tribalistic view of this party is in charge of the workers, for the workers, this party is in, for the top end of town, and this tribalistic, as you say, well, they're all the same as each other, so I'm not going to change. That's what's doing such great damage, and this is why things aren't going to improve, in my opinion.
It is, and I just Labor is supposed to be for the people. Well, 50 people total, I think 48, I believe the number is, with some people with disabilities lost their jobs like that, right? A family business that has been blood, sweat and tears lost their business like that. Once if you're in the food business and you're tarnished with a health violation that's public, it's very, very hard for you to make your way back, regardless of whether it's truthful or not, right? Because you then have to prove that no, it's people don't want to go to eat at your restaurant if you get a notice from the health department. But it's just like I said, if your political party's in power and if you can't call them out because you think they're a football team, and that's where I'll separate myself. I've been on record calling out ScoMo. I've been on record calling out Palachuk and Andrews and Berejiklian. I'm not looking at Labor Liberal. I'm looking at the man or the woman. I'm looking at what you've said, your policy, and I'm saying, hang on a second, that's bullshit. I'm like, no, that's wrong. That's corruption. That's not for the people. Most people can't do that, and it just amazes me until we get to that point where you can vote a party in and say, oh shit, I think I made a mistake. I think I made a mistake. This party's probably not what I voted for. They've changed their ideals. I'm going to call them out. Whereas it's like, I voted for them. I'm all in with them. You know, they're my football team. They're down 30 goals, but they're still doing a good job. And you're like, where have we come in society that you can't separate your bias? And it's, I guess that's a story into the human being and the psychology of people, and essentially Stockholm type syndrome type stuff, where it's an interesting topic psychologically to study. I mean, they're going to do case studies on this in 50 years and absolutely laugh at us, I truly believe.
We've lost the ability to disagree agreeably.
We have. And you can't even have the debate. We're seeing that now with my Instagram's been shadow banned for the good part of 21. Probably had about 4 months where it was fully operational. And that was just for posting questions about the narrative, or posting questions about the vaccines, or why do we still have a double jab mandate when the CEO of Pfizer has said it does nothing for Omicron? So why do we still have to show papers to go into a cafe? Is that not a valid question? Silent, censored, anti-vaxxer, you know, bigot, like keep quiet. And so much so that social media is actually censoring you. And people are supporting that. People are saying, oh, that's right. That's right. You know, that's misinformation. That doesn't agree with my ideals or what the mainstream media is telling me. You should be silenced. And you're like, are you listening to yourselves? Like, this will be you one day. Like I said, one day someone else is going to be in power that you don't agree with, and they're going to push that button on you, and you're going to go, oh, where did this come from? This isn't fair. Well, you know, you supported it for all these years.
Yeah, the Stoics had a great saying, especially old Marcus Aurelius, where the best revenge is not to become like the wrongdoer. And if what he says is hurtful, then change. If it's untrue, then ignore it. But you've got that ability to just switch off. Now, before we finish up, Andrew, I just want to make sure we don't get in trouble. Do you authorise everything you've said today? Is his message authorised by Andrew Bogut?
Well, what's funny about that is you think me posting something on my social media account with my full name on it would generally be authorised by me, wouldn't it? With anyone with half a brain. Like, it's on my social media account that says Andrew Bogut. So there's a post under my name that says, I like this football team, or I like this, or I don't like this. I'm pretty sure that's a pretty good authorization. So, like I said, it's just they're clutching at straws with their threats. Like I said, the letter, a lot of the things in that letter contradict what they're trying to ping me for, which is comical in itself. And like you said, I mean, how many letters have they sent out to individuals? I don't believe there'd be any. If there is, geez, they're gonna have to send a lot of letters out, because there's going to be, you know, aunties, uncles, grandmas. You know, I know a lot of the elderly population that post things on Facebook that aren't very favourable to the government. Are they all going to get letters? You know, so it's going to be a lot of paper. It's going to be a lot of work for the public service that I don't think they're capable of. So to answer your question, I don't think anyone else has received a letter. I think I'm the only one at the moment individually. And now we'll watch this space and see what they come back with.
Yeah, and let's not lose sight of the fact that we have a commission, a room full of public servants on our dollar that we're paying, that are doing this important work while we sit here with our hospitals in Co-Brown, our ambulance system struggling, but we've got money to pay people to send Andrew Bogut, private citizen, a cease and desist letter, because he didn't say on his own post that it was authorised by the very man who said it. Where are we?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's public service. Where it just tells me too that we have too much money for these cronies in public service, like where the public service needs to be heavily looked at, and you know, to an extent, it needs to be defunded, in my opinion. I think councils, state governments, federal governments, they've got too much money, and that there is actually a fair point where you look at countries that have a surplus of funds from taxes and high tax nations like Australia. Correlate that to how they've handled the pandemic, with boots on the ground, with police officers being, you know, it's been very hardcore in those nations, Australia, Canada, England, US. Look at your second, third world countries where it's we're trying to get a loaf of bread on the table every day. We're struggling to work. We're trying to find a job. The dystopian tactics haven't been as effective there because they don't have that kind of money. Where all the high tax nations, curfews, 5-kilometer radius, and they've got the people on the ground to actually implement that. Whereas some of these other countries that we kind of snub our nose at, I think they don't have the funds to do that, which is, I've just noticed that, and it's been very, very interesting. Someone brought it up to me a number of months ago, and I'm like, that does make sense.
All right, well, this message has been spoken and approved by Andrew Bogut and agreed with by Michael Ray. Look up Andrew Bogue's podcast, Rogue Bogues, and thanks so much for your time, Andrew.
No worries. Thanks for having me.